So last week we started an Advent series, long expected, and we are journeying with our lectionary Isaiah text. How in between moments in our lives can be the most arduous moments, but also the most significant. The moments between something really tragic or traumatic happening in our life. In the in-between moments of deciding and discovering who we are as a person because of those moments can be really hard and difficult, yet can be formational. I've thought a lot about this scripture that maybe you at some point in your life, maybe you were quoted this when you were going through something. And in all of us, when we think about like a moment or a season of life that we are going through, either we're thinking of a present moment or a moment in our past. And I encourage us to keep those moments present with us and real with us as we're talking about these things. Because sometimes in these moments we're going through and we're asking questions, and then some person comes to us trying to help us out and says, Scripture says God will never give you more than you can handle. And you're like, oh, thank you. So this hell that I'm in isn't all there is. There could be more. That's essentially, I feel like, what people are saying. It could be worse. Something to that effect. And Isaiah seems to challenge this notion in a way. I'm really reading Isaiah in this season in its own light, almost apart from the gospel, because that's usually how we kind of view Isaiah. But Isaiah speaks to the problem and plight of the Israelite people as insurmountable. Like, this is more than you can hold or handle. And Isaiah seeks to inject some hope for their future into a situation that is really bleak. Isaiah is the most quoted prophet in the New Testament. Anything out of the Old Testament, Isaiah is the most quoted. And those in the New Testament saw some of their story in the story of Isaiah in the midst of Roman occupation, and it calcified their hope in the midst of odds that were not in their favor. And my hope is that in the midst of seasons of life that seem insurmountable and overwhelming, that we might draw upon this story to give us some hope. Much of Isaiah chapters 1 through 40 is doom and gloom for the Israelite people. It's judgment. You're going to be exiled. And then they were exiled. Their homes were destroyed. Their land was destroyed. Their livelihoods were pillaged. This was a disastrous season, very long season of their life. And it was a horrible situation. I mean, I just think about it. The metaphor is so real to us. It was just a cloud over them. That's what this week's felt like, right? I'll take a good rainy day. Good rainy day. I don't know if I've liked 6 of them in a row. Like, it's gotten to the point where it's like, oh, the sun. It's good to see you. Oh, okay, you're gone. We'll see you later. This was their seat. Like, it was just a cloud over their life. And much of Isaiah, you read that, is just like judgment and doom and gloom. Like, this is not a good way forward. But then you have Isaiah 35 pop up that Bradley read. The wilderness and dry land shall be made glad. This idea that whatever season that you might be going through right now, that the wilderness and the dry land shall be made glad. A wilderness is a place absent of daily sustenance. There's no water, no food, no plant life. I mean, that's not necessarily true, I guess, if you're in the Amazon. But take my metaphor as a desert, I guess. And you might go there as water in the desert. I don't know. But the wilderness as this place, lonely and isolating, without sustenance. And yet Isaiah's prophecy is that this wilderness will begin to be vibrant and alive. I'm sure many of us and all of us have had moments of like, how do I move on from this moment? How do I recover? Maybe it is a season of grief and loss, a season of failure, a season of personal struggle, a season of growth, a season of deconstructing our faith to reconstructing our faith. It's a identity shaping. And I go back to these words of God will never give you more than you can handle, which is a grossly misinterpretation of that scripture. God will never give you more than you can handle, and Isaiah speaks to that to these people because Isaiah sees these people and says, "You have more than you can handle, and so much more than you can handle." You can't even, there's no more strength left in their bodies. And he says, those with weak hands, those who aren't able to stand, feeble knees, God's strength will hold us up. Just want us to capture that in the moment and to recognize it's okay when we don't. When we feel like we can't hold ourselves up. It's okay. I think so often we're taught that we lack faith. But it's not a position of lacking faith. It's just a position of saying, man, life is hard and challenging sometimes, and sometimes it just beats the crap out of you. And Isaiah says to these beat up people, that God's strength will hold you up. Isaiah's passage illuminates the truth that there are moments that we can't hold ourselves up, moments when we can't get our stuff together. Today I just feel like cussing, and I'm glad I'm not. I just feel like it's just like right there, and then like it stops. And in those moments, we are reminded that God is our strength. Not only is God our strength, but we are one another's help. There's always a person in our story that has probably been unhelpful, and we tend to think about those people. But a lot of times there are people that are incredibly helpful, who are angels, who are present with us, who walk with us, who stay with us. Even in the midst of deep struggle. God takes the mire and trauma of our stories and transforms them into beautiful jewels. The desolate places become a place for which we find God and ourselves. You know, in writing these words and thinking about Advent, you get this sense of Advent is kind of dark. And it is. And it was supposed to be that way. Advent was a season created for penitence, like Lent. And a lot of that is lost. But there's a lot of being in penitence and obedience. I think about those things in a way of like paying attention. It's a calling to be paying attention to the stories and seasons in our lives and how we might grow from them. These are critical moments for which we are struggling to hold the pieces together, but moments that we might realize our mutual need for one another. There are many hopes that I have for this church. But most important among many of those hopes is that this community would be a space that you might trust to hold your story. A piece of it, a part of it. Hopefully a space that when you're going through a really difficult, challenging moment in your life that you don't hear that God won't give you more than you can handle. Hopefully a space that of people who say, we'll walk together. A space that, that we realize you're not alone on your journey. Sometimes when people talking about a Storied Church, anytime they say the word story, they're like, I was telling my brother a story, Storied Church. Just because you have the word story in your story doesn't mean it relates any to like the name of our church. But the name is reflective of being able to, in some way, shape, or form, being able to reveal our truth to one another. And some people get this like that means to like come up in front of everybody and share my story. No, it just means that there are relationships that are forming that, someone knows my truth and I don't feel like I need to hide it. And I trust them enough to tell them that truth that they're not going to go around and tell everybody else my truth. And that's what I mean by when we're going through seasons of life, we know that we have a community that walks with us and that I can share and trust people with my story. I was recently listening to the current Surgeon General who's done a lot of work around the public health crisis of loneliness, and he talked about how in our society we raise especially young boys, and this has me a lot thinking because I have a young boy. There he is. To be self-reliant. And that in our society, we in general want people to be self-sufficient and that we don't want to have to ask anyone for help. And please don't remind me that I said this, but like, I'm one of those boys. I feel like I need to be self-sufficient and, I installed our dining room light. I put our dining room light on. The thing is massive. I'm just like, maybe I need help with this, and I'm like trying to screw in the thing up there, and I can do it myself, self-sufficient. So we kind of carry our stories silently. But we're reminded today in this Advent season that we don't have to do that. We can be interdependent upon one another. And that we can share our struggles and our truth with one another, knowing that we don't have all the answers, but just knowing that we aren't alone. So the call of the church, in some ways, is to challenge this self-reliant narrative, to help us realize our mutual need for one another. Especially, and I hope that our lives aren't consumed with wilderness moments, one after the other. I hope we have seasons of vibrance and life and all those things. But in the seasons of struggle, that we might be reminded of who we are and whose we are. And also to remind us of a hopeful future in the midst of the in-between moments of our lives. That soon, one day, the sun will reappear. It will, I promise. Advent is a season that is much defined by not just paying attention to the strife in our lives and in our world, but also in paying attention that something good is on the horizon. That darkness shall soon pass, and light shall come, even when it doesn't feel like it. I don't know what season that we are all waiting in, and the burdens that we all carry. But today I want us to receive that we are not alone, And that our hope that this community might be a healing balm for you, and that we might walk this journey together to help remind others of the hope that lies ahead. I invite us to pray. God, we give you thanks for this third week of Advent. I give you thanks for the beautiful stories that reside in this community. I give you thanks in the safety of this space, that we might find a sense of who we are, who you created us to be, and a beautiful affirmation of our lives.